that didn't happen. And if it did, well, it wasn't that bad.
Right.
And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it.
It is just chilling to hear it laid out like that. I mean, the sheer predictability of it.
It really is. It's the Narcissist's Prayer. Welcome to the debate. Today we are decoding the dark, hidden world of covert narcissism.
Yes, a very heavy topic today.
Right, because we are looking at a personality type that doesn't announce itself with loud, grandiose boasting. Instead, it slips in through the side door of pity, passive aggression, and really subtle manipulation.
Exactly.
So the central question we're debating today is this. What is the true, most destructive core of a covert narcissist's behavior? From where I sit as a behavioral profiler, I argue that the true danger lies in the narcissist's calculated predatory tactics.
Okay, but
It's a power grab. They actively weaponize introversion and victimhood to mask their grandiosity, and they systematically extract power while totally evading accountability.
And as a trauma-informed therapist, I come at it from a completely different angle. I mean, the primary threat isn't the narcissist's intent or their hoarding of power.
You don't think so?
No, I really don't. The true destruction is the invisible psychological trap they construct. It's the systematic dismantling of the victim's reality that induces this profound physiological trauma. If we only look at the predator's playbook, we completely miss the shattered mind of the person left in their wake.
Well, to set the baseline here, we've been culturally conditioned to think of narcissists as like the loud CEO, right? Or the preening actor.
Right, the overt type.
Exactly. The person who demands to be the center of attention by just sucking all the air out of the room. But when examining case studies on covert narcissism, you see a completely different, highly predictable, predatory power dynamic.
It is very different, yes.
The covert narcissist hides their deep-seated grandiosity under this facade of shyness or depression or chronic victimhood. They play the ultimate victim.
They do.
And by utilizing weaponized incompetence and guilt, they assert dominance over their environment. It is a brilliant, albeit incredibly dark, camouflage.
It's definitely effective.
Right? They aren't just avoiding accountability because they are fragile. They are actively hoarding power by forcing everyone around them to constantly manage their ego. They make you responsible for their emotional state, which, that is the ultimate form of coercive control.
I hear that. I do. But framing it entirely as a calculated power grab gives them almost a mastermind status, and it completely minimizes the lived experience of the person on the receiving end.
How so?
Well, the core issue here isn't the narcissist's ego management. It's the devastating emotional and somatic toll on the victim. The victim's reality is warped through this continuous, subtle manipulation.
Sure, the manipulation is constant.
Right, and the covert narcissist creates an environment of chronic anxiety, where the victim spends years literally walking on eggshells. They are systematically groomed to completely lose trust in their own senses, their own memories,
Which is horrific, yes.
and their own intuition. Focusing on the predatory intent ignores the physiological prison built around the victim.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on why understanding the tactical breakdown is absolutely essential.
Okay, go ahead.
We cannot address the prison without understanding exactly how the locks are built. Let's trace the mechanics of DARVO: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender.
Ah, yes, Dr. Freud's model.
Exactly, coined by psychologist Dr. Jennifer Freud. It maps perfectly onto the progression of the Narcissist Prayer I recited at the top of the show. It demonstrates exactly how this is a calculated strategy.
It is a pattern.
Right. When a victim confronts a covert narcissist with a legitimate grievance, the narcissist doesn't engage with the reality of the harm. They do not process the event. Instead, they deploy a reflexive counteroffensive.
The wall goes right up.
First, flat denial. I never said that. If the victim brings evidence, the tactic shifts to attacking the victim's credibility. You're acting crazy again. Your memory is terrible.
Yeah.
Finally, the reversal of roles, claiming the confrontation itself is the abuse. I do everything for this family, and you attack me? You are so cruel.
Right. The reversal is where the trap snaps shut.
Exactly. I compare this Darvo progression to semantic warfare in a courtroom. It's a relentless, bad faith cross-examination.
That's a good way to put it.
You come to them with a bleeding wound, and instead of helping you, they put you on the witness stand to define the word bleeding. They demand you produce screenshots, historical precedents, dictionary definitions of what constitutes a wound.
Exhausting.
It's a deliberate strategy to exhaust the opposition so that the original offense, the fact that they hurt you, is entirely forgotten in the maze of defending your own sanity.
I have to jump in here, because while I hear the tactical brilliance you're describing, wait, look at how this actually destroys the victim's mind.
Well, of course it does.
You call it a courtroom cross-examination, which is a great analogy, but in a courtroom, you know you are fighting an adversary. You're prepared for combat.
Fair point.
In a relationship, this is happening with someone who claims to love you. You are sitting on the couch in your living room. The sheer cognitive dissonance this induces is staggering.
Because the brain cannot process the betrayal.
Because the brain is violently trying to reconcile two completely contradictory streams of information for survival. On one hand, the victim's brain is saying, I know what I saw, I know what they did, and I feel the pain.
Right.
On the other hand, the person they rely on for safety and attachment is telling them, that didn't happen, and actually, you were abusive for bringing it up. This completely shorts out the victim's nervous system.
It overwhelms them.
It forces them into a severe trauma response. Pete Walker, who has done phenomenal work on complex PTSD, identifies this specific trauma response as fawning.
Fawning, right. As opposed to fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes, because fighting back against the narcissist's word salad only brings more psychological punishment, and fleeing the relationship isn't immediately possible.
So they have to adapt.
Exactly. The victim's survival instinct kicks in to protect them from the immediate threat. They must appease and comfort their abuser just to de-escalate the terrifying psychological tension in the room.
Which plays right into the narcissist's hands.
The victim literally abandons their own reality to stabilize the narcissist. They throw their own memory under the bus just to make the screaming or the silent treatment stop. That isn't just exhausting the opposition. That is the systematic shattering of the human mind.
But that fawning response is exactly what the covert narcissist is banking on. It proves the efficacy of their tactic. When the victim fawns, the narcissist regains total control of the narrative and the power dynamic.
It does give them control, yes.
And if Darvo isn't enough to force that submission, they escalate to their most potent weapon, which is the mask of pity. There is a harrowing case study often cited in behavioral literature that perfectly illustrates this.
Oh, I think I know the one.
A victim recounts gathering the courage to confront her covert narcissistic mother. The mother had carried on an affair and abandoned the family for a period of time.
Right.
When the son confronted her about the profound trauma this caused, the mother's response was to burst into tears and blame the affair on the unbearable stress of having to raise a depressed son, referring to the very son she was speaking to.
Oh, heavy sigh. It is horrific to even conceptualize.
I look at that with a purely clinical lens and say, that's not depression on her part. That is not a fragile ego in a moment of distress. That is weaponized guilt.
It is deeply manipulative.
It's designed to ensure that the narcissist remains the absolute focal point of sympathy even when they are the perpetrator of a massive family-destroying betrayal. It is a predatory flipping of the script.
Absolutely.
They use their supposed vulnerability, their tears, their stress as an impenetrable shield against any and all accountability.
And this is exactly what trips victims up. That weaponized pity is a highly specialized trap, and it is designed specifically for empathetic people.
They definitely have a type they target.
Covert narcissists do not just target anyone. They target natural healers, the highly competent, the highly conscientious people who are used to taking on the emotional heavy lifting in a relationship.
Makes sense.
The narcissist deliberately exploits this empathy. Let's trace how your example of the mother plays out in real time across countless relationships. The victim gathers the courage to confront the covert narcissist about a cruel comment or betrayal.
And then the tears start.
Instantly, the narcissist bursts into tears. They wail, I guess I'm just the worst person in the world. I sacrifice everything. I do everything wrong. I should just leave.
Playing the ultimate victim.
Precisely. And what happens to the empathetic victim? Their nervous system registers acute distress in a person they deeply care about. The fawning response we just talked about activates automatically.
So they rush to comfort them.
The victim's brain says, they are in pain, I must fix it. So 30 minutes after bringing up a legitimate grievance, the victim is crying, they are comforting their abuser, they are apologizing for having boundaries, and they completely forget the original abuse.
It's incredibly twisted.
The narcissist isn't just avoiding blame in that moment. They are actively feeding off the victim's empathy. They are consuming the victim's emotional labor to regulate their own self-esteem.
I completely agree with the mechanics of what you're describing, though I would frame the underlying mechanism differently.
How so?
The fact that they specifically seek out highly competent, empathetic individuals is exactly what makes this a predatory extraction of supply. They are identifying a resource, your empathy, and they are mining it.
Well, yes, it functions like a mine.
And they maintain access to this resource through covert gaslighting and micro-insults, which are fundamental tools of coercive control. We really have to look at the phenomenon of chameleon amnesia.
You mean the selective memory blackouts?
Yes, but it is so much more insidious than just forgetting. The covert narcissist has a photographic memory for every minor flaw, mistake, or perceived slight the victim has ever committed over the span of a decade.
Oh, they never forget those.
Never. But they have total, absolute amnesia for their own transgressions from yesterday. Psychologists note an incredibly disturbing example in the literature.
Is this the coffee one?
Yes, a husband who completely convinced his wife he was drinking tea when she had literally just stood there and watched him make a cup of coffee. He insisted on a false reality, digging his heels in over something entirely trivial.
Why do they do that? Over coffee?
Because the mechanism of the fragile narcissistic ego dictates that to admit any error, even a misspoken word about coffee, is to admit fundamental flaw, which triggers a collapse they simply cannot tolerate.
So they just lie?
Their brain literally rewrites the script, and they force the victim to accept the new script. If you can make someone doubt their perception of something as basic, as observable, as undeniable as coffee versus tea, you own their reality.
It is deeply destabilizing.
It is a micro-insult to the victim's intelligence, but a macro-level assertion of total dominance. They are establishing that objective reality does not exist in this house. Only the narcissist's reality exists.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that it's solely about dominance and owning reality in a Machiavellian sense. Let me tell you why.
Go ahead.
When you focus entirely on the calculation and the assertion of dominance, you miss the somatic toll. You miss the physical reality of what that type of insidious gaslighting does to the human body over time.
The physical reality.
Yes. Drawing on the work of Dr. Peter Levine and the principles of somatic experiencing, we know that the body stores this unprocessed trauma as frozen survival energy.
Okay, but how does the conversation about coffee become frozen survival energy?
Because the nervous system doesn't know the difference between a psychological threat and a physical one. When a victim is told that coffee is tea or that a deeply cruel insult was just a joke, their brain knows they are being lied to.
Right.
Their body registers a threat. The fight-or-flight response activates. The heart rate increases. Cortisol floods the system. Adrenaline spikes.
But they can't fight or flee.
Exactly. Because of the fawning response we discussed, their mind is forced to suppress the physical urge to fight or flee. That biological energy doesn't just vanish into the ether. It gets trapped in the nervous system. The victim's nervous system becomes simultaneously exhausted and hyperactivated.
So for the listener, this is why you might feel that inexplicable knot in your stomach or a sudden wave of exhaustion just hearing their keys turn in the front door, even if they haven't said a single word yet?
Yes, exactly. The body's keeping the score. The victim cannot rest. They are in a state of chronic hypervigilance, perpetually scanning their environment, reading the micro-expressions of their partner.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Trying to predict invisible threats from someone who claims to love them. Over years, this manifests physically. They suffer from severe gastrointestinal issues, autoimmune flare-ups, chronic fatigue, panic attacks.
It takes a huge toll.
The true horror of covert narcissism isn't the lie about the coffee. The true horror is the fact that the victim's physical body is breaking down under the crushing weight of holding two conflicting realities at the same time.
I hear the tragedy in that, I really do, but I worry that focusing so heavily on the victim's nervous system gives the narcissist a pass.
A pass? How?
It paints them as almost a passive force of nature, like a storm the victim just happened to walk into, rather than an active predator. Let me push back here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Whether the narcissist is consciously, maliciously plotting to induce a somatic trauma response, or whether it is a reflexive, unconscious defense mechanism to protect their fragile ego, does their lack of awareness make it any less predatory?
Well, the impact is the same.
Exactly.
I used to think of it like a shark, but that's the wrong metaphor. It's more like a parasite that cannot produce its own body heat. It must attach to a host and constantly siphon their warmth to survive.
That is a disturbing image, but accurate.
The covert narcissist's extraction of supply, their absolute need to consume the emotional energy, the apologies, and the stability of the victim to regulate their own internal void, is a predatory act. Conscious or not, the playbook is incredibly rigid, and it is designed to extract.
Right.
When they use the silent treatment, they are starving the victim of connection until the victim submits and provides the heat. I agree that the behavioral impact on the victim is identical whether the narcissist is a conscious mastermind or, a reflexive, emotionally stunted toddler in an adult's body.
Right.
But I insist that victims absolutely must understand the psychological deficits of the narcissist in order to heal. Specifically, they need to understand that the narcissist lacks what psychoanalysts call whole object relations.
Wait, whole object relations? I've heard that term thrown around in psychoanalysis, but in plain English, does that just mean they literally don't see the victim as a human being? How is that cognitively possible?
Essentially, yes. Whole object relations is a developmental milestone in childhood. It is the ability to see another human being as a separate, integrated entity who has their own independent thoughts, feelings, flaws, and rights.
And they lack this?
Completely. Covert narcissists simply do not have this hardware. To them, the external world is populated by cardboard cutouts, internal objects that exist solely to regulate the narcissist's self-esteem.
Wow.
You are never a complex person to them. You are either an idealized perfect extension of them because you are praising them, or you are an entirely devalued, demonic enemy because you set a boundary. There is no in-between.
And why is grasping this psychological deficit the key to the victim's recovery?
Because highly driven, empathetic people will spend decades trying to explain their pain to the narcissist. They think, if I just find the perfect words, if I just explain how deeply they are hurting me with the silent treatment, the light bulb will go off.
They think they can fix them?
They will finally see me, feel empathy, and stop. They don't realize they are trying to negotiate with someone who lacks the cognitive and emotional hardware to see them as a separate person with valid feelings.
That is devastating.
Once the victim realizes they can never be truly loved, seen, or validated by this person because the person is fundamentally incapable of it, they can finally stop trying to translate their pain. That radical realization is the only way to break the trauma bond.
So you are saying the tactical breakdown of their behavior is secondary to the victim's realization of the narcissist's structural emotional absence.
Exactly. Because as long as the victim is arguing with the narcissist about whether it was tea or coffee, they are still engaging with the delusion.
Right.
They are still trapped in the courtroom you described earlier, trying to win a logical case before a judge who doesn't even recognize they are a human being. They have to stop presenting evidence to a corrupt court.
That is a really profound way to look at it. Let me synthesize where we stand.
Go for it.
From my perspective, analyzing the covert narcissist reveals a dark, deeply predictable behavioral loop. The Narcissist Prayer, Darvo, weaponized guilt, and chameleon amnesia. These are not random acts of emotional clumsiness or simple misunderstandings.
No, they are not.
They are highly effective, coercive tactics designed to extract power, evade accountability, and avoid the ego-destroying pain of shame at all costs. The facade of the shy, vulnerable introvert or the perpetual victim of circumstance is merely camouflage.
Yes.
Underneath that mask is a fragile but unyielding grandiosity that demands the total subjugation of the people around them. Recognizing these tactics for what they are, a parasitic, predatory script, allows a person to see the trap before it springs.
And my summary is this. Recognizing those tactics is only half the battle. The profound psychological and somatic damage inflicted on the victim is the true tragedy of covert narcissism.
It is tragic.
The chronic anxiety, the fawning response, the total loss of self-trust, and the frozen survival energy stored in the body create an invisible physiological prison. Healing does not come from out-debating the narcissist or finally proving to them that they are wrong.
Because you can't.
Exactly. Healing requires the victim to radically trust their own reality again. It requires them to stop trying to make the narcissist understand, to recognize the profound deficit of whole-object relations, and to do the slow, gentle work of releasing the trauma trapped in their own nervous system. You have to walk out of their courtroom entirely and never look back.
We emphasize different sides of this highly complex dynamic, the predator's rigid, manipulative playbook on one hand, and the victim's shattering trauma and physiological recovery on the other.
Absolutely.
Yet both perspectives are absolutely vital for anyone trying to recognize these invisible red flags before they find themselves caught in the web.
They really are. Because if you don't know the mechanics of what you're looking for, it just looks like you're dealing with someone who is a little sensitive or, a little misunderstood, and that is exactly how they get in.
We will leave you, the listener, to reflect on your own relationships, your own boundaries, and your own reality. There is much more to uncover in this study of dark psychology and the protective mechanisms of the human mind.
There certainly is.
But for now, I want to leave you with the very words that started this debate. That didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. If you find yourself constantly defending your sanity against the script that never changes, perhaps it is time to ask yourself, who wrote the script? And why are you still standing on their stage?